And we're live.
Yeah, I think that with the NFL in particular, we've had this big decline in ratings for whatever reason. I personally think people aren't as commercial tolerant anymore. They just don't want
Yeah,
breaks.
it's multifaceted. It's a lot of things coming together, making the NFL ratings drop. I agree with your point. Like people are not as commercial tolerant. And if you look at the amount of commercials, the ratio of commercials to actual football that you get in an NFL game, it's outrageous. I heard someone on the radio talk about it the other day, and I was like, oh my God, you're getting like I'm just off the top of my head, but you're getting like 7 minutes of football and then like 8 or 9 minutes of commercials and then 7 minutes of football and then 12 minutes of commercial. And it's like, whoa, this sounds awful. I would much rather watch online for free like I already do and just fast forward through all that bullshit.
Yeah.
And of course, the concussion thing, there's plenty of people who are not happy about that. You had the Will Smith movie that came out a couple years ago. And then all of the research that's coming out now. You've got parents like saying they're not going to put their children in there, which I think is going to really take effect in like 8 years from now, 10 years from now, because the high schoolers that never went into football are never going to make it to college and then are never going to make it to the NFL. I think in 10 years, you're going to see a decline in like, maybe you don't see records broken the way that they're being broken right now in 10 years because there's fewer players going into those sports. And maybe some of these guys become swimmers and you see that 6'5" black guy who's just killing Michael Phelps records.
Even if it's not them diverting into other sports, I feel like people who played high school football could be football fans for life that will just never get into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you think it's going to be a transition to like the safer sports like basketball and baseball?
Yeah, basketball, baseball, tennis, swimming, like soccer is growing in this country slowly but steadily. I mean, Atlanta's got a decent soccer team, I've heard. I'm told.
I'm told there's a soccer team about here somewhere.
They're out there running around kicking a ball in a stadium somewhere out in Atlanta. I don't know much about it, but
I heard Raleigh might get one. They're going to put a stadium in some area now that's currently like blight, and I feel much like I'm not involved at all, so I'm like, yeah, you should totally do that.
As long as it doesn't fuck with my traffic and I can still fly over that area, I'm good.
Yeah, it just seemed cool. I was like, yeah, it sounds like I saw the aerial plan for it, and it goes from this what now is probably like a scrapyard for cars in the city and some gangs, and they're like, this is what the after will look like, and it's beautiful landscaping and an arena, and like we're a little worried the rock like songs and the get up enthusiasm will go beyond the stadium. And I thought, well, that seems fine to me because it's just surrounded by other like commercial places, and it looked like a great improvement to the city. I hope they do it. I hope it doesn't cost me a penny, which is what the paper said.
Yeah.
Do you think soccer would ever get big in America?
Not nearly as big as the sports we already have. It's a little. Our sports are pretty aggressive. I feel like in soccer isn't. There's a lot of and you see this there's a lot of that. Yeah.
I hate it.
That in the NBA a good bit.
I like soccer. I fucking hate that.
People faking injuries. What do you call it?
Diving.
Yeah, diving.
Flopping.
Flopping, that's it. Yeah, flopping's the term that we use often. And when you see this montages of it on YouTube of soccer players
getting
flopping,
shot, and
yeah, it looks like they just took a 12 gauge or something. And like the guy, I saw one where the guy flicks the other guy's ear, and the guy's like,
ah! I've seen that. See, they need more public shaming. That's another lesson they could take from the NHL, where sometimes if you get high sticked, that's a penalty from the guy high sticking you. But if you get hit in the face and you start bleeding and you go down like you got shot, even if you're still bleeding, the ref will come over and be like, yeah, 2 for high stick and then 2 for embellishing. Yeah, it's not that bad. And they throw you in too, and they fine you for it, and then they publish it and they shame you. Like, oh look at this hoser. Fucking
it gets popular on YouTube.
What sports do you think this is?
There's a lot of Irishmen in it.
The problem is it only happens from the opposite team. The team, you only complain about it when it happens in your opposite team. When it happens to you, it's like, no, let's not speak about it. Let's not speak about that. I think they should have cameras. I like the idea of having cameras and just stopping the game. Like, no, look, I didn't hit him. Just stop 1 second.
I like the instant replay in every single sport that it's in. And I like more of it over less of it. Like one of the things that's always irked me about baseball, even though I grew up, when I was most into baseball, we had pitchers like Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine, and those were guys who really picked at the corner of the strike zone. They were experts at that. That's how they got into the Hall of Fame. But they threw a lot of balls that got called as strikes. So I was, it's all right, do what you got to do. But now I would be like, I kind of wish that there was a fucking, I don't know the technology that would be required. Maybe there's a sensor in the goddamn ball, and there's some sort of a sensor around the plate. Like the strike zone is a defined thing.
That doesn't
It's
exist
the width
already,
of the plate.
Kyle?
It exists in tennis.
No,
it should exist in baseball.
The strike zone is 100% the umpire behind the plate, and there's no getting around that at all.
But I feel like the television, I don't know, when I watch YouTube videos and stuff, and I don't watch much baseball, they tell you whether the ump got it right or wrong. You know, they'll draw the box and they'll show you exactly where the ball went.
Sometimes they will, but that's not any kind of real evidence, and it's not accurate enough for the games, because the strike zone is a three-dimensional thing that changes from batter to batter. You know, it's your knee to the bottom of your letters, and you know, it's as deep as the plate is long, and then that shifts because the plate isn't a perfect square. It's sort of a square with a triangle on the front. So they would need some sort of technological advance that I'm sure we could do. Get a
couple cameras triangulated or something.
No, actually, what they do in tennis is when there's ever a doubt, the player can say, "Hey, I think that was in," and they'll show a recreation of the ball with cameras all around the field, and it actually shows it by a millimeter whether it's in or out.
I feel like, you know, in a game where millions of dollars are on the line and like you got huge fan bases back and forth, it'd be nice to get the fucking calls right. And if it slows the game down a little bit more, like, I mean, what's the big deal?
And I was going to talk about slow the game.
They cannot afford to slow baseball down.
Here's the thing, like, and Taylor, you watch hockey, so maybe you, like in hockey, if their goal is contested in some way, they do an instant replay. I find that period of slow to be suspenseful and interesting. Like if the instant replay is coming back on whether or not some guy's foot was in bounds or whether or not the puck crossed the line, I'm usually on the edge of my seat for those instant replay results. I'm not like tapping my watch wishing they were faster. So it may slow the game down technically, but
see, I get that with the sport like hockey where there's not a lot of goals scored. Like, and so, you know, if a game finishes 3-2, like at absolute most, that would have been 5, you know, reviews that they had to do because they weren't sure, or maybe, you know, a couple were iffy and then a couple challenges. But in baseball, like if every fifth pitch is getting reviewed, like it seems like that would take forever.
See, the way it would work is every time the pitch went over the plate, if the catcher catches it, a light would go red or blue. Just eliminate the umpire going or ball or whatever he fucking says. Okay. Just eliminate that bullshit. I hate the umpires in baseball. I feel like
it would actually be Nazis. To keep them.
They abuse their power. Absolutely, those guys are cunts. Like I hate the way that players can't have to be like tiptoeing around these jerk offs.
I've got it. We replace the umpire with just a cameraman standing behind the catcher. And
no. You keep the umpire, but you don't show him the result. So if he calls it wrong, he gets shit on by everybody.
Oh, I'd like that.
So everybody sees whether he's right or wrong. Get shit on.
Yeah,
it's just a test all the time.
You're allowed to throw shit at them.
Maybe the umpire gets 3 wrong and he's out. Maybe somebody comes, you're out of here.
Yeah, the super ump who sits in the back, you know. And you know what? The regular ump, you should have to have his home address printed on the back of his jersey. Just in case. I'll see you after the game, Mr. 821, you know, South 5th Street. You know,
I take back the result. No, it's too late.
It could like get better and better. Like, you know, at first when he gets wrong, it reveals his phone number and everyone can text him. The second one gets wrong. Yeah, something else.
Looks like a strike
address.
to me, buddy. Never mind. You know?